My name is Oliver Wilson, and I'm about to tell you a story that will change how you view trust, betrayal, and the price of dignity. What happened to me 2 years ago in Chicago wasn't just about adultery, it was about discovering a web of deception that went far deeper than I could have ever imagined. I was 34, working as a senior sales manager at Pinnacle Technologies, a mid-sized software company in downtown Chicago. Life seemed perfect. I had a corner office on the 15th floor with a view of Lake Michigan, a six-figure salary, and most importantly, I was married to Violet, a stunning redhead with emerald eyes who could light up any room she entered. We'd been married for 8 years, together for 10. Violet worked as a senior accountant at the same company, which is how we met. She was brilliant with numbers, ambitious, and had this infectious laugh that made everyone around her smile. Our colleagues often joked that we were the power couple of Pinnacle Technologies. Our life in Lincoln Park was everything I thought I wanted. We had a beautiful 2-bedroom condo with exposed brick walls, went to wine tastings on weekends, and took annual trips to Europe. Violet talked about having children someday, maybe buying a house in the suburbs when we were ready to settle down properly, as she put it. But looking back now, I realized the cracks were already there. I just chose not to see them. Everything began to unravel when Pinnacle Technologies hired a new vice president of sales in March 2023. Noah Richardson was 42, silver-haired, and carried himself with the kind of confidence that comes from years of closing million-dollar deals. He'd previously worked for Oracle and Salesforce, and his LinkedIn profile read like a testament to corporate success. Within his first week, Noah had restructured our entire sales department. He implemented new CRM systems, established weekly performance metrics, and somehow managed to increase our quarterly projections by 30%. I'll admit I was impressed. Finally, we had a leader who knew what he was doing. Noah was married to Hazel Richardson, a sharp-minded corporate attorney at McKinsey & Associates. She was elegant in that understated way wealthy women often are, designer clothes that didn't scream their price tags, perfectly styled blonde hair, and a handshake that conveyed both warmth and authority. They seemed like the perfect executive couple. The first sign something was off came 6 weeks after Noah's arrival. I was working late on a proposal when I noticed Violet's lights still on in the accounting department. This wasn't unusual. She often stayed late during month-end closings. But when I walked over to her cubicle to suggest we grab dinner together, she quickly minimized something on her computer screen. "Ready to go?" I asked, leaning over her shoulder to give her a kiss. "Actually, I need another hour or two," she said, not meeting my eyes. "Noah wants the Q1 expense reports reformatted by tomorrow morning." On a Friday night? You know how new executives are. They want everything perfect. I should have pressed her then. Should have asked why Noah was giving her direct assignments when she reported to the CFO. Should have wondered why she seemed nervous. Instead, I kissed her forehead and said I'd pick up Thai food for dinner. The second sign came 2 weeks later. Violet started working out again, something she hadn't done consistently in years. She joined an expensive gym downtown and began leaving the house at 6 a.m. for morning classes. "I just want to get back in shape," she explained when I commented on her new routine. "I've been feeling sluggish lately." She also bought new workout clothes. Expensive ones. Lululemon sets that cost more than some people's monthly grocery budgets. When I asked about the expense, she said she'd gotten a small bonus for her work on a special project. "What project?" I asked. "Just some financial analysis for the executive team. Nothing exciting." But everything about her seemed more exciting lately. She had a glow I hadn't seen in months, maybe years. She was more energetic, more attentive to her appearance, and she'd started wearing perfume again, a different scent than her usual one. The third sign was the phone calls. Violet had always been attached to her phone, but now she guarded it like state secrets. She'd take calls in the bathroom, on the balcony, anywhere I wasn't. When I asked who called, she'd say it was her sister or a girlfriend from college. "Since when does Rebecca call so much?" I asked one evening after Violet returned from a 15-minute conversation with her sister. "She's going through a divorce. She needs someone to talk to." I knew Violet's sister. Rebecca was happily married with 2 kids and lived in Portland. She called maybe once a month. By July, the signs were impossible to ignore. Violet was staying late at the office 3 or 4 nights a week. She'd started taking business trips, something she'd never done before in 8 years at the company. When I asked about these trips, she'd give vague answers about client meetings and financial audits. "Since when do accountants go on client visits?" I pressed. "Noah thinks it's important for the accounting team to understand our clients better. He's very hands-on with professional development." "Noah." His name came up in conversation constantly now. Noah wanted this, Noah suggested that, Noah thought it would be a good idea if she attended this conference or that meeting. I started paying closer attention to their interactions at work. During our monthly all-hands meetings, I noticed how Violet's entire demeanor changed when Noah spoke. She'd lean forward, hanging on his every word like he was delivering the Sermon on the Mount instead of quarterly sales figures. And Noah, he had a way of looking at her that made my stomach turn. Not obvious enough that anyone else would notice, but I saw it. The lingering eye contact, the slight smile when she asked questions, the way he'd find excuses to stop by the accounting department. I could have confronted Violet directly, but something held me back. Maybe it was cowardice, or maybe it was the part of me that still hoped I was wrong. Instead, I decided to do some investigating of my own. I started staying late at the office, pretending to work on projects while actually watching the patterns of who left when. I noticed that on the nights Violet said she was working late, Noah's car was also still in the parking garage. They never left together, always 15 or 20 minutes apart, but the timing was too consistent to be coincidental. One Thursday in August I followed them. I felt like a stalker hiding behind concrete pillars in the parking garage, but I had to know. Violet left first as usual. 20 minutes later, Noah walked to his car. Instead of heading toward his home in River North, he drove south toward the Loop. I followed at a distance, my heart pounding. He pulled into the valet area of the Palmer House Hotel. 15 minutes later, Violet's car appeared at the same valet stand. I sat in my car across the street for 2 hours watching the hotel entrance. Neither of them came out. At 11 p.m., I finally drove home and pretended to be asleep when Violet returned at midnight, smelling faintly of expensive cologne. That weekend, I made a decision that would change everything. Instead of confronting Violet or hiring a private investigator, I decided to talk to the one person who might be as invested in the truth as I was, Hazel Richardson. I knew where she worked, but showing up at her law office seemed too dramatic. Instead, I waited until the following Tuesday and called her assistant, claiming to be from Pinnacle Technologies with an urgent message for Mrs. Richardson regarding her husband. "This is Hazel." Her voice was crisp and professional when she called back 30 minutes later. "Mrs. Richardson, this is Oliver Wilson from your husband's company. I apologize for the unusual contact, but I need to discuss something sensitive with you regarding Noah." There was a pause. "What kind of sensitive matter, Mr. Wilson?" "The kind that affects both our marriages." Another pause, longer this time. "Where would you like to meet?" We arranged to meet at a coffee shop in Millennium Park the next evening. I spent the day rehearsing what I would say, how I would present my suspicions without sounding like a paranoid husband. Hazel was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with a clear view of the entrance. She was more beautiful in person than I'd realized, probably mid-30s, with intelligent blue eyes and the kind of composure that comes from years in courtrooms. "Mr. Wilson," she stood to shake my hand. "I have to admit, your call yesterday has had me quite curious." I sat down across from her, suddenly unsure how to begin. "I believe our spouses are having an affair." Hazel's expression didn't change, but I saw her fingers tighten around her coffee cup. "What makes you think that?" I told her everything. The late nights, the business trips, the changed behavior, the hotel sighting. She listened without interrupting, occasionally taking notes in a small leather notebook. When I finished, she was quiet for several minutes. Finally she spoke. "Noah's been different lately too. More secretive about his schedule, taking calls in his study with the door closed. Last month, I found a receipt in his jacket pocket for dinner at Gibson's, a very expensive dinner for two. When I asked about it, he said it was a client meeting, but the date was a Saturday night." "Did you believe him?" I wanted to. But then I found another receipt. And another. Always the same pattern, expensive restaurants, always for two people, always on evenings when he said he was working late or meeting clients. We sat in silence, processing the weight of what we were discussing. "There's something else," Hazel said eventually. "Noah's been acting strange about money lately. He's opened a new credit card account without telling me, which is unusual since we've always been transparent about finances. When I asked about it, he said it was for business expenses, but he's never needed a separate card for that before." "Have you looked at the statements?" I tried to, but he has them sent to his office instead of our home. We talked for another hour, sharing details that painted an increasingly clear picture of deception. By the time we parted ways, we'd agreed on a plan that was both simple and audacious. "The company's annual gala is in 3 weeks, Hazel said as we prepared to leave. "Everyone will be there with their spouses. If Noah and Violet are as careless as they seem, they'll likely use the event as an opportunity to be together. And if they do? Then we expose them. Publicly. In front of everyone who matters to their careers and their reputations. I should have felt guilty about planning such a dramatic confrontation, but I didn't. If Violet was betraying our marriage, if she was lying to my face every day, then she deserved whatever consequences came her way. The 3 weeks leading up to the gala were torture. I watched Violet prepare for the event with an enthusiasm that seemed disproportionate for a company party. She bought a new dress, a stunning black number that probably cost more than our monthly car payment. She made appointments at expensive spas, got her hair and nails done professionally. "You're certainly going all out for this thing," I commented as she tried on the dress for the 3rd time. "It's an important event for the company," she said, admiring herself in our bedroom mirror. "Noah wants everyone to make a good impression on the board members who'll be attending." Noah again. Always Noah. The night of the gala, Violet looked absolutely radiant. The black dress hugged her curves perfectly, her red hair was styled in an elegant updo, and she wore the diamond earrings I'd given her for our 5th anniversary. Looking at her, I felt a complicated mix of pride, love, and rage. "You look beautiful," I said as we prepared to leave. "Thank you." She kissed my cheek, leaving a subtle trace of lipstick. "Tonight's going to be special." She had no idea how special. The Palmer House ballroom was transformed for the occasion. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over round tables draped in white linens, and a string quartet played softly in one corner. The company had spared no expense. This was meant to impress potential investors and clients. I spotted Hazel immediately. She was wearing a deep blue gown that complemented her blonde hair, and she moved through the room with the confidence of someone used to high-stakes social events. When our eyes met across the room, she gave an almost imperceptible nod. Violet and I were seated at a table with other senior employees and their spouses. Noah was at the head table with the CEO and board members, Hazel beside him playing the perfect corporate wife. For the first hour of the evening, everything seemed normal. I watched Violet carefully. She was charming and social, laughing with our colleagues' wives and asking interested questions about their children and careers. But I noticed how often her eyes drifted toward Noah's table, and how she always seemed to know exactly where he was in the room. The speeches began around 8 o'clock. The CEO talked about the company's growth and future prospects. The CFO presented financial highlights. Then Noah took the microphone. "This has been an incredible year for Pinnacle Technologies," he began, his voice carrying easily through the ballroom. "When I joined this company 8 months ago, I knew we had tremendous potential. But the results we've achieved have exceeded even my highest expectations." He went on to thank various team members for their contributions. When he mentioned the accounting department's exceptional work on financial analysis and reporting, his eyes found Violet at our table. The look that passed between them lasted maybe 3 seconds, but it confirmed everything I'd suspected. After the speeches, the dancing began. I danced with Violet to a few songs, but she seemed distracted, frequently glancing around the room. When the band played "The Way You Look Tonight," our wedding song, I thought we might have a moment of connection. Instead, she seemed impatient for the song to end. "I need to use the ladies' room," she said as soon as the music stopped. I watched her walk toward the ballroom exit, but instead of turning toward the restrooms, she headed for the elevators. My pulse quickened. This was it. I waited 5 minutes, then excused myself from the table. Hazel was already moving toward the exit when I caught up with her in the hallway. "Elevator," she said simply. We watched the floor indicator climb. It stopped at the 14th floor. "Room 1427, Hazel said. "I checked earlier. It's registered under the company account, supposedly for out-of-town board members, but I happen to know all the board members are staying at the Four Seasons." We took the next elevator up. The 14th floor was quiet, dimly lit by elegant wall sconces. We walked slowly down the carpeted hallway until we reached room 1427. The sounds coming from inside left no doubt about what was happening. My wife was in there with another man, and they weren't discussing quarterly reports. Hazel pulled out her phone and began recording audio. Then she knocked on the door. "Room service?" she called in a disguised voice. "We didn't order anything," came Noah's muffled reply. "Complimentary champagne from the hotel management," Hazel insisted. There was a pause, then the sound of movement. A few moments later, Noah opened the door wearing only a hotel bathrobe. His expression went from confusion to horror as he recognized Hazel. "Hello, darling," she said with icy calm. "Don't you look comfortable?" Behind him, I could see Violet scrambling to pull the bedsheet around herself. When she saw me standing next to Hazel, the color drained from her face. "Oliver, I can explain," she started. "No need," I interrupted. "The situation is quite clear." Hazel pushed past Noah into the room, still recording with her phone. "This is interesting. A company-paid hotel room for a company-sponsored event. I wonder what the board of directors would think about this use of corporate resources." Noah tried to regain his composure. "Hazel, let's discuss this privately." "Privately?" She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Like you and this woman have been discussing things privately for months?" "I don't think so." What happened next surprised everyone, including me. Hazel walked to the hotel room phone and dialed the front desk. "Hello, this is Mrs. Richardson in room 1427. I'd like to report a disturbance in my room. Could you please send security up immediately?" "Hazel, what are you doing?" Noah demanded. "Making sure we have witnesses," she replied calmly. Within minutes, 2 hotel security officers arrived. They found themselves in the awkward position of mediating a confrontation between a half-dressed vice president and his wife, while his mistress cowered under a bedsheet. "Ma'am, is there a problem here?" one of the officers asked Hazel. "Yes, there is. I'd like to document that I found my husband in this hotel room with another woman during a company event. This room is paid for by their employer, Pinnacle Technologies." The security officers looked uncomfortable, but they dutifully took notes and photos at Hazel's request. As a lawyer, she knew exactly what documentation she would need for divorce proceedings. "This will be part of the public record," she informed Noah and Violet. "Hotel security reports can be subpoenaed in divorce and employment litigation." The reality of their situation was finally sinking in. Noah tried one last time to control the narrative. "Everyone just calm down. We're all adults here. These things happen and we can work through this privately." "Privately?" I finally spoke up. "You mean like how you privately decided to destroy my marriage and your own? Like how you privately used company resources to facilitate your affair?" I turned to Violet, who was still clutched the bedsheet around herself. 8 years, Violet. 8 years of marriage, and this is how you tell me you're unhappy. "I never meant for this to happen," she whispered. "But it did happen. Over and over again, apparently. How long has this been going on?" She looked at Noah as if seeking permission to answer. That look told me everything I needed to know about the dynamic of their relationship. "Since May," she admitted. 4 months. 4 months of lies, deception, and betrayal. 4 months of coming home to me every night and pretending everything was fine. The security officers finished their documentation and left, clearly eager to escape the domestic drama. We were alone again, 2 betrayed spouses confronting 2 cheaters in a hotel room that smelled of infidelity. Hazel broke the silence. "Get dressed. Both of you. We're going back downstairs to the gala." "What?" Violet's voice cracked. "You heard me. You're going to walk back into that ballroom, and you're going to face everyone you've been lying to for months." "Hazel, be reasonable," Noah started. "I am being reasonable. The reasonable thing would have been for both of you to end your marriages before starting this affair. Since you didn't do that, you get to face the consequences publicly." I understood what Hazel was doing. She wasn't just angry, she was strategic. As a lawyer, she knew that public humiliation would strengthen her position in divorce proceedings. It would also make it impossible for Noah and Violet to continue their affair without constant scrutiny. "I won't do it," Violet said, pulling the sheet tighter around herself. "Then you'll lose everything," I told her. "Your job, your reputation, your settlement in our divorce. Hazel has evidence of the affair, evidence of misused company resources, evidence of fraud if you've been billing personal time as business expenses." Violet's face crumpled. She finally understood that her choices had consequences beyond just hurting me. It took 20 minutes for them to get dressed. 20 minutes of uncomfortable silence while they put on their evening wear and tried to repair their appearances. Violet's makeup was smeared, her carefully styled hair disheveled. Noah's usually perfect silver hair was mussed, and his bow tie sat crooked. We rode the elevator down in silence. As the floors counted down, 10, 9, 8, 7, I felt a strange sense of calm settling over me. 4 months, I'd been living in uncertainty, questioning my instincts, wondering if I was paranoid. Now I knew the truth, and the truth, however painful, was liberating. The ballroom was still alive with music and laughter when we returned. Couples were dancing, groups of colleagues were sharing stories and drinks, and everyone looked relaxed and happy. They had no idea their evening was about to take a dramatic turn. Hazel walked directly to the head table, where the CEO was chatting with board members. I followed, with Noah and Violet trailing reluctantly behind us. "Excuse me, Mr. Jameson," Hazel addressed the CEO. "I have something important to share with you and the board." CEO Robert Jameson looked up with a polite smile. "Of course, Mrs. Richardson. What can I do for you?" "I've just discovered that your vice president of sales, my husband Noah Richardson, has been having an affair with one of your employees, Violet Wilson. They've been using company resources to facilitate this relationship, including booking hotel rooms on the corporate account." The conversation at the head table stopped abruptly. Board members put down their wine glasses and turned to stare at Noah, who looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. "I'm sorry, what?" Mr. Jameson's smile faded. "You heard correctly. I have photographic evidence, hotel security reports, and documentation of corporate credit card misuse. I thought you should know before this becomes a legal matter." The room around the head table had gone quiet. Other guests were beginning to notice the tense conversation and gravitating closer to hear what was happening. Noah finally found his voice. "Hazel, this is not the place." "This is exactly the place," she cut him off. "You chose to conduct your affair with a subordinate using company resources. You made it a corporate matter." Board member Margaret Chin leaned forward. "Is this true, Noah?" Before Noah could answer, Hazel continued. "Mrs. Wilson has been billing personal time with my husband as business expenses. They've been using the corporate travel account for romantic getaways. And they've been booking hotel rooms at company events for personal use." Violet stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. "Please, this is all a misunderstanding." "Is it?" I asked, my voice carrying in the increasingly quiet room. "Is our marriage a misunderstanding? Are the 4 months of lies a misunderstanding?" By now, almost everyone in the ballroom had gathered around the head table. Colleagues I'd worked with for years stared in shock. Spouses who'd been chatting with Violet earlier in the evening looked appalled. Mr. Jameson stood up. "Noah, I think you and I need to have a private conversation. Immediately." "No," Hazel said firmly. "No more private conversations. No more backroom deals. If Pinnacle Technologies wants to protect itself from the legal liability of having executives who commit fraud and harassment, they need to act decisively and publicly." "Harassment?" Margaret Chin questioned. "Noah is Violet's superior. He has influence over her employment, her performance reviews, and her career advancement. Any sexual relationship between them creates a hostile work environment and exposes the company to significant legal liability." As a corporate lawyer, Hazel knew exactly which pressure points to hit. The board members exchanged concerned glances. In the current corporate climate, companies couldn't afford to ignore allegations of executive misconduct. "Furthermore," Hazel continued, "I'll be filing for divorce immediately. I'll be seeking maximum damages for adultery, and I'll be requesting discovery of all company records related to my husband's travel and expense accounts. If Pinnacle Technologies has been subsidizing this affair, they could be liable for contributing to the destruction of my marriage." The legal implications were clearly sinking in with the executives. CEO Jameson looked like he was calculating the potential costs. Legal fees, settlements, public relations damage, regulatory scrutiny. "Noah," he said finally, "you're suspended effective immediately pending a full investigation. Security will escort you out of the building tomorrow to collect your personal items." "Bob, let's be reasonable," Noah started. Reasonable would have been following company policy regarding relationships between supervisors and subordinates. Reasonable would have been not using company resources for personal activities. This is the consequence of your choices. Violet was sobbing openly now. Several of our female colleagues looked at her with a mixture of pity and disgust. The men seemed uncomfortable, avoiding eye contact with both her and me. "As for Mrs. Wilson," Mr. Jameson turned to Violet, "you'll also be suspended pending investigation. If the allegations of expense fraud are substantiated, you'll be terminated for cause." "Please," Violet pleaded, "I need this job. I can't lose everything." The irony of her statement wasn't lost on anyone. She was worried about losing her job, but hadn't considered what she was losing when she destroyed our marriage. Hazel wasn't finished. She'd clearly planned every aspect of this confrontation, and she was executing it flawlessly. "There's one more thing," she announced. "I've already contacted Channel 7 News. They'll be running a story tomorrow about corporate executive misconduct at Pinnacle Technologies. I thought it was only fair to give you advance notice." The blood drained from Mr. Jameson's face. "Mrs. Richardson, surely we can resolve this without involving the media." My husband involved the media when he decided to conduct his affairs so publicly. Hotel staff have been talking. Restaurant employees have seen them together. This story was going to come out eventually. At least this way the company can get ahead of it by taking decisive action. The party was effectively over. Guests began gathering their things and making awkward excuses to leave. No one wanted to be associated with the scandal that was clearly just beginning. As people filed out of the ballroom, I found myself standing next to Violet near the now empty dance floor. She looked small and defeated, her elegant gown wrinkled, her makeup ruined by tears. "Oliver, please," she whispered. "Can we talk privately?" I looked at this woman I'd been married to for 8 years. This woman I'd loved, trusted, and planned a future with. This woman who'd been living a double life for months while looking me in the eye every day. "What is there to talk about, Violet?" "I can explain everything. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. You've been having an affair with Noah for 4 months. You've been lying to me, using company resources to facilitate your relationship, and billing the company for personal time with him. The company thing, that was Noah's idea. He said it was normal for executives. So you're saying he manipulated you?" She paused, clearly realizing the trap in that admission. If she claimed manipulation, it would support Hazel's harassment allegations. If she claimed it was consensual, she was admitting to fraud. "I made mistakes," she said finally. "No, Violet. Forgetting to take out the trash is a mistake. Leaving your car lights on is a mistake. This was a choice. Dozens of choices made over months to betray everything we built together." She started crying again. "I never meant to hurt you. But you did hurt me. Every day for 4 months you looked me in the eye and lied. You came home to our bed after being with him. You made plans for our future while destroying our present." Around us, hotel staff were clearing tables and packing up decorations. The elegant ballroom was returning to its normal state, but nothing else would ever be normal again. "What happens now?" Violet asked. "Now you face the consequences of your choices. I'll be filing for divorce immediately. Hazel's law firm will be representing me, and given the evidence we have, I expect you'll agree to a favorable settlement rather than fighting it in court." "And the job situation?" "That's not my problem anymore. You should have thought about job security before you decided to commit expense fraud." I started to walk away, then turned back. "There's one thing I want to know. Was any of it real? Our marriage, our plans, the life we were building, was any of it real to you?" She looked at me with red, swollen eyes. "Of course it was real. I loved you, Oliver. I still love you." "No, you don't. You loved the security I provided. You loved having a stable home to come back to after your adventures with Noah. You loved having a husband who trusted you completely so you never had to worry about getting caught. But you didn't love me enough to be faithful, and you didn't love me enough to be honest. That was the last real conversation Violet and I ever had. Everything after that was handled through lawyers." The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. The Channel 7 story aired as promised, featuring interviews with hotel staff who confirmed seeing Noah and Violet together frequently, and with former Pinnacle employees who'd noticed their unusually close relationship. The story gained traction on social media, particularly among local business groups who were fascinated by the corporate scandal. Pinnacle's stock price dropped 12% in 2 days, and the board called an emergency meeting to discuss damage control. Noah was terminated for cause within a week. His severance package was voided due to the policy violations, and the company demanded repayment of all misused expenses. He ended up owing Pinnacle nearly $40,000. Violet was also terminated for cause after an internal audit confirmed she'd been billing personal time as business expenses. The company estimated she'd stolen approximately $15,000 in fraudulent billing over the 4 months of the affair. Both of them were blacklisted in the Chicago corporate community. Word spreads quickly in professional circles, especially when it involves fraud and ethics violations. Neither of them could find comparable employment in the city. My divorce from Violet was finalized in 6 weeks. With the evidence Hazel had collected, Violet's attorney advised her to settle quickly rather than fight. I got the condo, most of our savings, and a favorable property settlement. She got her car and about $10,000, barely enough to start over. Hazel's divorce from Noah took longer because of their more complex financial situation, but the outcome was similar. She got the house, most of their investments, and a substantial alimony settlement. Noah was left with barely enough to rent a small apartment. The most interesting development came 3 months after the scandal broke. Noah and Violet, contrary to what you might expect, did not end up together. The stress of losing everything, their jobs, their marriages, their reputations, destroyed whatever attraction had brought them together in the first place. Noah blamed Violet for being careless and getting them caught. Violet blamed Noah for convincing her to use company resources and putting her job at risk. Their passionate affair devolved into mutual recrimination and finger-pointing. Noah eventually left Chicago entirely, taking a lower-level sales position with a small company in Phoenix. Violet moved back in with her parents in Milwaukee and found work as a bookkeeper for a local small business, a significant step down from her previous position. As for me, the aftermath was surprisingly positive. The story of how I'd handled the situation, with dignity, strategic thinking, and without resorting to violence or revenge, actually enhanced my reputation in the business community. Several headhunters contacted me with job opportunities, and I was promoted to regional sales director at Pinnacle within 6 months. Hazel and I remained friends throughout the divorce proceedings. She was brilliant to work with, strategic, thorough, and absolutely ruthless when it came to protecting her clients' interests. After our divorces were finalized, we occasionally had dinner together, comparing notes on our post-marriage lives. "Do you ever regret how we handled it?" she asked me over wine one evening about a year later. "Which part?" "The public confrontation. We could have handled it more quietly." I considered this. "No, I don't regret it. They made their affair public by conducting it so carelessly. They made it a professional matter by using company resources. We just forced them to own the consequences of their choices. My therapist says I was motivated by revenge." "Were you?" She smiled. "Absolutely. But it was strategic revenge. There's a difference." I laughed. "That's very lawyer of you." Noah used to complain that I was too calculating, too strategic in my approach to things. Apparently, he preferred the spontaneous, emotional type. How did that work out for him? He lost his career, his house, his retirement savings, and his reputation. I'd say my calculating approach served me better. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, two people who'd been through a unique shared experience. "Are you dating anyone?" she asked eventually. "I've been on a few dates. Nothing serious yet. I think I need more time to trust my judgment about people again." "I understand that. I keep second-guessing my instincts about everyone I meet." "Do you think we'll be able to trust people again? Really trust them?" Hazel considered this carefully. "I think we'll trust differently. More carefully. We'll pay attention to warning signs we might have ignored before. That's not necessarily a bad thing." She was right. I was more cautious now in all my relationships, but I was also more confident in my ability to handle difficult situations. I'd learned that I could survive betrayal, that I could act with dignity under pressure, and that the truth, however painful, was always preferable to living a lie. Sometimes people ask if I regret how I handled the situation with Violet and Noah. They suggest I could have confronted them privately, given them a chance to end the affair quietly, saved everyone the public humiliation. My answer is always the same. They made their choices publicly by conducting their affair so carelessly. They involved our workplace, our colleagues, and our professional reputations. They used company resources and committed fraud. The consequences they faced were proportional to the damage they caused. More importantly, the public confrontation served a purpose beyond personal satisfaction. It exposed a predator who had been destroying families for years. It led to policy changes that protect other employees. It demonstrated that there are consequences for betraying trust and abusing power. I learned something important about myself during those months of discovery and confrontation. I learned that I'm stronger than I thought, more resilient than I believed, and more strategic than I gave myself credit for. I learned that dignity isn't something other people can take from you, it's something you either maintain or surrender through your own choices. Violet surrendered her dignity when she chose to lie and cheat. Noah surrendered his when he chose to prey on vulnerable women. But Hazel and I maintained ours by facing the truth, demanding accountability, and refusing to be complicit in covering up their behavior. The night of the corporate gala, when everything came crashing down, felt like the end of the world at the time. But it was actually the beginning of a better life. A life built on truth instead of lies, on mutual respect instead of manipulation, on genuine love instead of convenient arrangement. If I could go back and change what happened, would I? If I could prevent Violet's affair, save our marriage, avoid all the pain and public humiliation? No, I wouldn't change a thing. Some endings aren't happy, but they're right. Some prices are worth paying for your dignity and your self-respect. Some chapters need to close completely before better ones can begin. This is my story of betrayal, discovery, and ultimately liberation. I hope it helps someone else recognize when they're living a lie and find the courage to demand the truth, no matter what it costs. Because in the end, the truth is always worth it. Thank you for watching the video to the end. Maybe YouTube will no longer offer you my channel, so subscribe to it by clicking subscribe on the right under the video to receive new interesting stories. Also on the right of the video there is a playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to, and you can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.